the hidden architecture of emotional self-protection, how fear disguises itself as distance, and how to reclaim your power over the space between connection and retreat. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've felt it. Maybe it was last week. Maybe it was last night. Someone who was warm, who was present, who made you feel like you mattered. And then, without warning, they were just gone. Not physically. They're still there. But the version of them you knew has retreated behind a wall so thick, so sudden, that you stood on the other side of it, completely disoriented, replaying every conversation, every word, every look, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? And here is the brutal paradox that no one tells you when you're standing in that confusion. The pulling away had almost nothing to do with you. And yet, if you don't understand the psychology behind it, it will cost you everything. Your peace, your confidence, your ability to love without flinching. Because here's what happens when we don't understand why people retreat. We begin to shrink ourselves. We walk on eggshells. We over-explain. We beg for answers that never come. We chase what was always meant to teach us, not trap us. So today we're going to do something powerful. We're not going to sit in the confusion. We are going to dissect it. We are going to look at the science, the philosophy, and the lived reality of what happens inside a human being when they suddenly go cold. And more importantly, we are going to talk about what you do with that knowledge. Because understanding this doesn't just heal a relationship, it transforms how you relate to yourself, your past, and your future. This is not a video about how to get someone back. This is a video about how to stop losing yourself every time someone else is afraid of getting close. Let's get precise. Because when emotion clouds understanding, we suffer. When understanding meets emotion, we evolve. The sudden pulling away is not random behavior. It is a psychological architecture built over years, often decades of lived experience. And the moment conditions feel too good, too close, too real, that architecture activates like an alarm system. Let's look at what's running beneath the surface. Psychologist John Bowlby's attachment theory, developed through decades of research, showed us that the way we learn to connect as children becomes the blueprint for how we connect as adults. People who developed what researchers call an avoidant attachment style learned early on that closeness was dangerous, that needing someone led to disappointment, rejection, or being overwhelmed. So their nervous system developed a sophisticated defense. When relationships become too intimate, too emotionally charged, too real, the avoidant person's system floods with cortisol, the stress hormone, and the brain triggers a retreat. It is not calculated. It is biological. It is a fire alarm going off in a building that has never actually been on fire, but the system doesn't know that yet. Here is where neuroscience gives us something remarkable. The brain is not fixed. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience, means that every time a person retreated from closeness in the past and felt safer for doing so, that pathway grew stronger. The retreat became automatic. The relief after withdrawal reinforced the behavior, the same way a drug reinforces an addiction. Neuroscientist Joseph Leduc's work on the amygdala shows us that fear responses, including the fear of emotional intimacy, can override rational thought in milliseconds. The person pulling away isn't choosing logic over love. They are running a program that has run thousands of times before. The question is not whether that program can change. Thanks to neuroplasticity, it absolutely can. The question is, what is the cost of not changing it? Psychologist Brené Brown spent decades studying shame and vulnerability. Her research consistently found that the moments of greatest potential connection, the moments when someone begins to feel truly seen, are also the moments of greatest internal alarm. The person pulling away is experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a painful collision between two truths. I want this, and this is terrifying. Rather than sit in that dissonance, the brain seeks resolution through the only strategy it knows: distance. Control, retreat. The very thing they want becomes the thing they flee. Now here is what you must understand. These are not character flaws. They are survival strategies that outlived their usefulness. And that distinction matters enormously, because it means the person who pulled away isn't broken. They are operating from old maps in new territory. But here's what also matters. Understanding someone's psychology does not obligate you to absorb the consequences of it without boundaries. Both things are true simultaneously. I want to talk to you about a cost that rarely gets named. We talk about the pain of being left behind. We talk about what the person who was abandoned loses. But what about what the person who pulled away loses? What about the accumulated debt of a life spent retreating from the very thing that makes life worth living? Viktor Frankl, who survived 4 concentration camps and emerged with a philosophy of meaning that transformed modern psychology, wrote that the deepest human drive is not pleasure or power. It is the search for meaning. And the most devastating meaning we can lose, Frankl argued, is the meaning found in genuine human connection. He watched men with every external reason to despair hold on because they had someone waiting for them. Someone real. And he watched others, men who had everything, surrender because they were fundamentally alone inside. The person who pulls away is not free. They are imprisoned in a room of their own construction, looking out the window at a life they are watching instead of living. The fear of getting hurt keeps them safe from the one thing that would save them. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher who ruled an empire while writing private letters about his own loneliness and grief, captured this precisely. What we avoid does not disappear, it waits. It grows. The Stoics had a concept called memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a morbid fixation, but as a clarifying fire. If you knew, truly knew, that this was your last year on earth, would you spend it maintaining the walls you've built? Would you spend it protecting a heart that was never designed to be left untouched? And for you, the one left standing in the silence, there is a cost too. Every time you chase what retreated, every time you contort yourself to be easier or less, you practice a slow erosion of self. You teach yourself that your love is something to be apologized for, that your desire for closeness is a problem to be managed. That is not love. That is self-abandonment wearing the costume of devotion. The fear of failure is never as costly as the life you didn't build because you were afraid to fail it. And the fear of love is never as devastating as the decades spent watching real intimacy happen to everyone else but you. The real tragedy is not a relationship that ended. The real tragedy is a human being who was capable of extraordinary depth, who chose shallow water because the deep end felt unsafe. That is the cost of never addressing the psychology beneath the pulling away. And it compounds silently every single year. Now we build, because understanding is the beginning, but execution is the transformation. Whether you are the one who pulls away, or you are the one left trying to make sense of someone else's retreat, the following disciplines are not optional luxuries. They are the architecture of a life that is emotionally free. Let's go through each one. Before the world reaches you, reach yourself first. Spend the first 10 minutes of your day in deliberate emotional inventory. Not scrolling, not reacting. Ask yourself, what am I carrying from yesterday that does not belong to today? Research on the brain's default mode network shows that what you feed your mind in the first hour shapes your emotional baseline for the next 16 hours. Prime for clarity, not anxiety. Cognitive behavioral therapy, developed by Aaron Beck, is built on one foundational truth: your emotions are not caused by events. They are caused by the meaning you assign to events. Someone pulling away is a fact. I am unlovable is a story, a catastrophically wrong one. Practice catching the story and replacing it with the evidence. What do the facts actually say, not the fear? The most powerful thing you can do when someone retreats is to remain grounded in yourself. This is not indifference. This is self-mastery. Relationship therapist Murray Bowen called this differentiation, the ability to be fully present with another person without being consumed by their emotional state. The less you chase what retreats, the more space is created for genuine reconnection. Anxiety chases. Security invites. Stop letting emotional processing be ambient background noise in your life. Cal Newport's research on deep work applies directly to emotional healing. You need designated, protected time for processing difficult feelings, journaling, therapy. honest conversation, and then you need to close that file and be fully present in the rest of your life. Chronic rumination is not processing. It is picking at a wound. Give yourself time to genuinely work through it, then return to living. When someone pulls away and your nervous system activates, your heart races, your thoughts spiral, the urge to text rises like a tide. That is a somatic response, not a directive. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's research shows that a physiological sigh, double inhale through the nose, long exhale through the mouth, immediately downregulates the stress response. Use it. Then respond, don't react. The pause between stimulus and response is where your power lies. James Clear's work on identity-based habits teaches us that behavior follows belief. If you believe you are someone who requires external validation to feel worthy, you will chase every person who withholds it. Instead, build the identity of someone who is whole, not because you have all the answers, not because you're never hurt, but because your sense of self does not live in someone else's hands. Identity declaration, practiced daily, rewires the narrative at the root level. These 6 disciplines are not personality traits you either have or you don't. They are chosen behaviors, practice behaviors, behaviors that, repeated with intention, become who you are. That is the entire mechanism of growth. Chosen discipline, executed consistently, becomes identity. We have covered a lot of ground today. We've looked inside the psychology of withdrawal, the attachment wounds, the neurological grooves, the cognitive dissonance of someone who desperately wants connection and is simultaneously terrified of it. We've sat with the cost, the unlived life, the slow erosion of self, the compounding regret of every year spent protecting a heart from the very experiences that would have expanded it. And we've built a system, 6 disciplines, grounded in science and philosophy, that reshape you from the inside out. But none of that matters unless you make a decision right now, not tomorrow, not after the next difficult conversation. Right now, in this moment, as you sit with this, here is your 3-part commitment method. First, the identity declaration. Say it aloud or write it down. I am someone who chooses growth over comfort, clarity over confusion, and security that comes from within. Say it every morning for 30 days. Watch what it does to your baseline. For the next 30 days, every time you feel the pull to chase, to apologize for existing, to shrink yourself to keep someone comfortable, write down what you did instead. Accumulate evidence of your own strength. Build the case file that proves who you are becoming. Tell one person in your life, one honest, trustworthy person, what you are working on, not for their advice, for the weight of being witnessed. When another human knows what you intend, the intention becomes harder to abandon. You are not on this path alone. The goal is not to be perfect, but to be relentless. Relentless in your understanding, relentless in your compassion, for yourself and for those who haven't yet found the courage to stay. Relentless in building a life that does not require someone else's consistency to feel stable. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and died one of the most revered thinkers in history, taught that we cannot control what others do. We cannot command someone to stay. We cannot force another person to do the work of healing their wounds. But what we can control entirely, completely, absolutely, is what we do with the space they leave behind, what we build in the silence, who we choose to become in the wake of someone else's retreat. The person who pulls away suddenly is not your final chapter. They are a chapter, one that taught you something essential about love, about yourself, and about the kind of emotional world you are capable of building if you commit to the work. Let them be that. Let the confusion become clarity. Let the pain become purpose. Let the distance they created become the space where you discover exactly how much you never needed anyone to make you whole. If this video moved something in you today, if something here felt true, felt necessary, felt like exactly what you needed to hear, share it with one person who needs to hear it too. You never know who in your circle is standing on the other side of that wall right now, asking themselves what they did wrong. Let them know they are not alone. And if you want to go deeper, subscribe, because we're just getting started. The work is never finished. That's not a sentence that should discourage you. That is the most liberating truth there is. You don't need to be finished to be free. You just need to keep going.